right, welcome back to the show. Appreciate everyone listening. Today I've got my buddy Colin Schwartz. We are in a high-level mastermind together, real estate mastermind together, and kind of hit it off a little bit last retreat we had. I'm interested in getting to know him better and knowing his background a little bit more, so I'm excited for this show. Colin, welcome to the show. Why don't you give us just a 20-second introduction, and then we'll dive into your story.
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me on. Okay, 20-second introduction. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, married to my wife, Emily, going on 11 years, have 3 kids, specialize in multifamily assets. I guess you could call me a syndicator, although we do JV projects. We have about 2,400 rental units, approaching $250 million in value. We have a hard money lending business, or a private money lending business, that has about $17 million out right now. We've done close to 400 loans over the past 4 years. Run a large real estate meetup group out here, close to 6,000 members.
Wow.
Yeah, man, that's me, man.
I want to dive into all that.
All right, so, let's do it, man.
What's that?
Let's do it.
Yeah, obviously a large portfolio, a pretty significant amount of money out on the streets with hard money lending, and 6,000 people in your meetup group. So let's get into it. Where, I guess, did you go to college? What'd you do after high school? How'd that look?
I went to a lot of colleges, not for the right reason. So moved around a bunch when I was a kid, but my parents moved out to Belen, New Mexico. You can look it up on a map. It's got some wonderful statistics. That's a joke. Graduated from Belen High School in 2003, went to college, lost all my scholarships. I was basically a straight A student, but was not prepared for adulthood in the real world. So lost all my scholarships the first semester. Went to community college, kind of played around there, but I always had a really good work ethic. I've always had a job since, I guess my first business was when I was 6 years old. It was Crazy Colin's Cupcake Corner. I thought lemonade stands were stupid and that I could sell slushies and charge 6 times as much. And that's what I did. And I sold cupcakes, other things. When I was in 5th grade, I started wholesaling candy until I almost got expelled because I got ratted out and the vending machines weren't making any money because I was undercutting them. But had a lot of different jobs, moved out to Nebraska in 2007 after I finished my bachelor's degree finally was I 23 or so. Started working a lot of different jobs, started working retail at a grocery chain. Thought I was going to become a grocery store manager. They actually have really good stock options, really good options for pay, but I did not want to continue spending 70 hours a week at a grocery store. During that time, I got my master's degree. And said, man, I'm going to go do this 9-to-5 life. I'm going to make it big. Got a corporate job. And I knew the first day I got my corporate job that I was going to hate it. I sat down in a cubicle and I would say every day was probably an hour's worth of work. Kept getting promoted. I remember they had it was slated for a 2-year-long project. And in 6 weeks, I completed 90% of it. And my boss said, well, you're going to need to slow down. But really, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this. So we didn't come from money. My parents didn't buy their first house until they were 50 years old. And it was a $109,000 home. I think they got into it with 0 down. So I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. Parents weren't entrepreneurs. Didn't really have a background of it. But January 1st, 2017, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was the last day I was on vacation with my wife. And I remember it. I was reading it at night and it just hit me so hard, like really hard of like, man, I am never going to get to where I want to be doing what I'm doing. Fast forward 3 days later, back at work, which happened to be my birthday. Boss calls me in, and boss was a really good friend. He was my workout partner, but he was taking orders from his bosses. And they said, Colin, you can no longer take unpaid time off. So I would take this additional time off because I had a consulting job on the side, try to make some extra money. I also found out I was having my second child. So I got kind of hit with this storm of like, I literally can't take time off when I'm not getting paid. So I'm like, okay, now this is, I'm not going to use a form of slavery, but it is a form of indentured servitude. Mm-hmm. Within the next hour after this happens, all my employees gathered around a gentleman's desk who was 30 years my senior, been at the company for 30 years. And he has a countdown timer on his desk, and it says 1,000 days, 1,000 days. And everybody's celebrating. Wow, that's great. You're going to be retired in 1,000 days. And I just I knew the thought going through everybody's head, and especially that individual, was if he could press that button, he would get rid of the next 1,000 days to not have to live his life for the next 1,000 days so he could be retired. And I immediately knew I had to do something different. It was basically just the world just kind of coming down on me. So I started self-educating, read everything I could, just, you fuck around and you find out. And this was before that was a thing. And I picked up every book I could on real estate, on business, on entrepreneurship. I started asking everybody I knew who the smartest person they knew was. And then I'd reach out to them and I'd ask if they knew anybody that was in real estate. And I knew I wanted to get into multifamily. The reason being is just I saw it as less risk. You have four units, one of them goes vacant, you're at least paying your mortgage. I didn't have a lot of extra capital to be able to sit there, flip houses. I didn't understand, borrowing hard money, but I did have equity in my home. So and this is why my wife's my hero, lets me, take a lien on her house to get to free up some equity. And I started speaking to every banker I could in town. I put together, and I recommend everybody to do this. We're so ingrained of having a resume, but what I created was something more of a future vision, but also showing my past self. So talk about my experience, but also talk about my goals and the projects I was looking at, and give a pro forma of, maybe a property that's on the market and how I would want to run it, so that when I did find a property, I already knew what I could borrow at. I already had the lender's pre-approval, so I could go out there and make offers confidently, because I knew that I was basically disadvantaged in every which way. I did not have any connections. I didn't have any experience. And, I needed to be first and fast. So I'm calling around to agents all the time. So I didn't take a lunch break for a year. Every lunch, I would walk properties. I'd call 4 rent signs looking for the owners that wanted to sell. I'd call 4 sale signs seeing if they wanted to sell. And I'd call agents. Well, I kept getting the same thing as basically, especially when talking to agents, they were saying, I'd say, hey, I'm looking for an 8 cap property, 10 to 12% cash on cash returns, blah, blah, blah. They're like, good luck, bud, you and everybody else. And everybody else has actually done deals, and I'm not going to waste my time on you. And that's basically what they said. So me just, being myself, said, F it, I'm going to go and I'm going to figure out how to do a letter campaign. So went on listsource.com, spent, probably a month at work, because remember, my work was not that stimulating. So I'd finish all my work within the first hour of a day. And I pulled a list of 191 properties that fit my criteria. It was absentee owners within 3 zip codes. And those zip codes were between my work and my house, because I knew I would get burnt out. I was going to have a second child. So I didn't want to pick something up 50 minutes away, because I knew I was going to be hands-on with this. I didn't know what hands-on meant, but I knew I was going to be hands-on with it. I also wanted to be able to service them over my lunch break. So I dwindled it down to these 191 units, multifamily, had owned them for over 5 years so that they had some equity in them, so that they'd be more likely to sell. And this was in 2017. So the market was starting to come up, but it was probably 50% of what it is now. People thought it was starting to get hot, but it was
but still a tough time to buy.
Still a tough time to buy. Well, I sat down one weekend, my young son in my arm, watched football, probably a beer in the other hand, and I just sat there and wrote letters. I hand wrote 191 letters. I put the envelopes together. And this is, I think people oftentimes try to hide when they're doing these campaigns. They put a P.O. box or trying to do some sort of fancy something on it. What I was trying to reverse engineer the piece of mail that I would open. And the piece of mail that I would open would have a real stamp on it. I would see it's from a local address. So I put my home address on there as my return address. I hand wrote their address out. And the reason why I put my home address, people are like, well, that's crazy. You're giving up some privacy. When you're sending a letter to somebody, you're already infringing on their privacy, and they're already taking a step back. Like, who the heck are you? Well, I already opened up that door, putting myself in a perceived weaker position which opened up the conversation. They could do some due diligence on me. They could see where I lived, what my house was worth, how long I've owned it for. So they'd have like some fire to throw at me, which was actually a really good thing because I wanted just to get them on the phone and talking. Well, I think I have the stats somewhere, but I got like 13 or 14 calls off these 191 letters and I got 7 deals out of it.
Wow.
Once again, had no clue what I was doing. I also sent them off on Friday so that they could hit on Monday. And why that's important is people are in business mode Monday, Tuesday. If letters start hitting near the weekend, there's 2 things that are going to happen. People aren't in business mode. And 2, it's surrounded by flyers. So your mail is going to get lost. People are going to be busy. They're just going to be disinterested. They're not going to jump on the phone. But on a Monday, Tuesday, everybody's like, okay, it's work time. Need to go check the mail. Need to do that. So my phone started blowing up. So I'm stepping out of meetings left and right, having conversations, no clue what to do. But what I did know is that people, especially successful people, which I assumed most of these were, at least more successful than me, love to talk about themselves. So I just sat there and listened. Just listen. Tell me about your stories. Tell me about real estate. Educate me. I'm new to this. And just told them, I have the capability of purchasing up to, I think it was like $800,000 worth of properties or $1 million worth of real estate, something like that, based on the equity in my pre-approvals. And I started going to properties. One of them was great, and it kind of, I think, is why you don't give up when you get told no. 99 no's and a yes is still yes at the end of the day. And I think lots of people give up right away. I could have given up when the agent said no, when everybody said no. I mean, the first 4 months was just nothing was happening, but I was working 100 hours a week on getting 0 results. But what I found is that the results you get are from the past work you have done, depending on like what you're projecting for the future. So in my vision was a long-term vision to create enough wealth and passive income that if I get hit by the proverbial bus, my family is taken care of. That means I wasn't looking for quick cash. It wasn't mean I was trading time for dollars. I was building something for the future. So I was always trying to remind myself of like, okay, this is for the future. But I ended up closing on my first property on April 24th of 2017. And ever since then, I've had a property under contract. I almost went an entire day and locked something up at 11 o'clock at night. This was like 4 years ago. So always had a property under contract. And I think, I just want to jump into this like 4-step process, which I didn't even know was a process, but I've spoken on it a few times. But I think it's critical for anybody that's stuck out there and really like is desperate to make a change, but has 0 connections, 0 clue what to do, doesn't know where to start. This is what I did. And this is before I, started getting all guru-y, with saunas, cold plunges, listening to motivational speeches and, talking about mindset and breathing and meditation. First thing I would do every morning. So we all have negative self-talk in the morning. Maybe not you, John. You seem like a real positive guy, but every morning there's negative self-talk. So I told myself the first thing I'm doing in the morning is I'm writing in a journal, I'm reading something, or I'm putting something in my ears that's either educational or positive. Like the second I wake up, I'm not going to let my mind wander, not a second. And I was going to wake up also between 5 and 6 a.m. You just have to wake up earlier because the next important piece is you have to get exercise. And the reason why you have to do it in the morning doesn't mean you can't do it again at night. The reason you have to do it in the morning is if you don't do it in the morning, you're going to spend maybe 5 to 50 times during the day thinking about you have to go to the gym later in the day. And that's wasted space in your head. Also, you're not revving your engine, and also you're not getting rid of all that, the cortisol and all basically the anxiety. So you need to work out first thing in the morning. And this is, once again, for people that are getting started, I still work out first thing in the morning and do these things, but especially when you're getting started, because I can't tell you how many times I'd be on the way to the gym and say, man, you're an idiot. Just be happy with your 6-figure job and shut up. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop. But I would have positive things on in the background. I'd have bigger pockets. The third thing to do is do something new every day that is towards your goal. So if it is real estate, day one, call an agent, analyze a deal, do something like that. Now, the 4th step is absolutely the hardest, but it's super attainable. You're going to stack those new items on top of each other. So say the first day you analyzed a deal. Cool. Well, the next day you're going to call an agent. Okay, cool. But on that second day, you're also going to analyze a deal. The third day, you're going to meet with an insurance broker. Okay, so you're meeting with an insurance broker, you're meeting with an agent, and you're analyzing a deal. And you stack these things for 30 days. So what I began to realize is a disciplined person does the same thing every day. That people that are in the top 1% will do the same thing every day. Most people can't do the same thing every day because it's boring. They get undisciplined, they say it doesn't matter, and then they fall down this bad train. If you can stack this and just do it for 30 days, you've completed, I think, 455 tasks. That is that's like almost 1.5 years equivalent to what the disciplined person can accomplish. So like I would attribute that first like 30 to 60 days of me on this road of creating the like exponential gains that came later. So, so really dived into it, started a meetup group. The reason I started a meetup group is the meetup group that was out here would meet Monday nights. They would serve cold coffee and cookies, and it was at an elementary school gymnasium. Not really my vibes. Nobody was allowed to speak. So I said, well, I guess I'm going to start one. So posted on Facebook, hey, I've got a 4-plex. Anybody wants to bring a 12-pack and a pizza? Walking through it. 16 people. So you
did this, and I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah, please.
You did this with one 4-plex. You started your own meetup.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I do want to hit pause there really cool. Quick because one, everyone listening, you can tell Collin is a very energetic person. You've got a ton of energy. What you just said in 16 minutes was, I mean, that's a 3-hour episode of how to get in the real estate, how to live your life better, really. I mean, it's fun. There's so many things I can get into, and this show's not about me, but
it's always about you, Jon. It's always about you.
I was talking to a buddy yesterday, a good friend of mine, who's trying to get in the space. And we're talking about just kind of time blocking, figuring out when the best time to do things are, to try to get in the real estate. And everything you just said was what we talked about yesterday. I was like, dude, he gets up at, sometimes it's like 3:30 in the morning.
Wow.
I'm like, you work out. After you work out, you need to time block at least an hour to do your real estate, because that's when you're most productive in your day. You just got your workout in, which is awesome. I'm assuming he's feeling like what you said, fill yourself with positive thoughts. But after that, like your cup is full. So that's when you need to do your most productive stuff, which is what you just said, which is awesome, man. That was great. I do want to ask, how long were you in the corporate world?
So the 9-to-5 world, 4 years.
4 years. Okay. And you are and it's funny, everybody that is somewhat, I don't even say somewhat, that's very successful is very intentional. And you are a very intentional person. Like everyone listening can tell that. And you just take action. So it seemed like, and I don't know the timeline, but obviously everything's still very vivid for you with those turning points, right? You remember that guy's timer on his desk, 1,000 days till retirement. It's those little things that I'm sure just drove you to like, this is it. I'm done working this job. I'm taking action and doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, when things are going good, they're going good. But and I think this is something else that's important is, I didn't realize, but visualization, I just was able to, in that moment, picture myself 30 years older and not taking a chance on myself and missing my kids growing up, having to tell my kids, no, I can't be there because I have to work. I don't miss their practices now. I coach to all their sports, and it's because I have that flexibility. I would say, and we talked about this, that we may be working 40 or 50 hours a week, but mentally we're probably working another 40 to 50 hours. The true entrepreneur doesn't turn it off. And, now I realize like, it's nothing like I would have expected. If you would have told me 7 years ago, I'd have this many units, X amount of income, et cetera, coming in, I'd be like, cool. How's the beach life? Like, how's it being retired? It would have been a totally different vision. But what I've realized too is like, it's not in the destination. It is in the journey. And like, I go back to that place of like building the business, and when every day was something new, and it was freaking fun. Like, it is just fun. Like those things, when you're doing that, when you don't know what you're doing and you're having to problem solve things you've never problem solved before, it's one of the most exhilarating things you can do. And I think for anybody like struggling to like break out of the golden handcuffs or the corporate career. It's like, there is a job out there for you if you quit. Like, if you are highly motivated and have intelligence, even just a low level in any area, you can find another job. And the thing you can't have is your time back, because I started when I had, was about to have 2 kids. I realized it was going to continue to get exponentially more difficult to start. One, just because getting older, your energy levels reduce. Like, you get more stressed, you have more bills, and then you have more kids and you have more responsibilities. So like, you should start as soon as possible, but you also should have a plan. It took me a year before I quit my job, which honestly was pretty quickly. And it was based on my wife telling me, well, she was sick of me complaining about my job basically every day. And she texted me one day at work and she's like, "Are you going to do it today?" I was like, "F it. All right." And I went and did it that day. So I think you just have to, but you have to have that laser focus, and you have to understand. I was listening to Patrick Bet-David today, and, he's talking about visualization. They talk about visualization. Okay, I've got the mansions, I've got the cars, 20 years, I have this, I've got the perfect wife, I've got all the vacations, family's happy. That's kind of motivating if that's your thing. Most of us are motivated more by fear. And I think instilling in yourself of like, what if I do nothing? What does my life look like in 20 years? Yep. What if I stay the same? What is my life going to be like in 20 years? And if you're not happy with that answer, you need to make some changes.
Yep. 100%. You said problem solving is exhilarating to you. I don't know that everyone can say that. I see that in a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think that's probably a common trait with entrepreneurs, because that's what we like to do, is solve problems. Do you run into other people? Do you think that's a common trait, or is that entrepreneurial trait?
I mean, it's definitely an entrepreneurial trait. I mean, it's what is there? Fight, flight, and freeze. And I've been in some, other situations. I mean, we just had a massive tornado the other day, 52 of them. And, there's some people that flight, there's some people that stay still, don't know what to do, and there's some people that fight. And I think that goes with everything in life. And I'm not sure. I feel most things can be trained. I just think that's a difficult one to be trained. I think it takes discipline in both physical and mental fitness to have that ability to fight. But yeah, I don't like lots of problems, but I like some problems. And I realize that a problem doesn't go away by just ignoring it. Alex Hormozi says this, the first time you have a problem, it's a big problem, and you just stew on it. You don't know what to do, and it consumes your day, it consumes your week, it consumes your month. Like a bad employee. It's like, oh God, what am I going to do with this? If I fire him, blah, blah, blah. Well, once you've dealt with that situation 100 times, it's no longer a problem. It's just like a common operating procedure. You just know what to do. You have certain systems, you have certain standards that you know how to go through this obstacle. Like at the beginning, it's like, how do I write a purchase agreement? How do I get an operating agreement? And just spinning my wheels for days. How do I negotiate? How do I set up due diligence periods? How do I find the money? All these are really big problems at the beginning, but the only way that they don't become problems is that you actually tackle them head on and you learn from those items so that the next time they could become easier and easier and easier.
Yep. That's very well said. So let's pick back up your story. You had one fourplex, and this was in 2017, and you decided to start a meetup that's turned into 6,000 people. Take us from there.
Yeah. So I guess, a little bit about the Meetup Journey is I saw there was something that I wanted that didn't exist. So I said, maybe there's other people like me out there. And I said, what's the worst that can happen? It cost me no money. It cost me a little bit of time. Why not give it a try? Well, 16 people showed up. Next month, we did it at a buddy's property. 30 people showed up. So I said, cool, I'm going to throw it at a bar, because I'd like to have a beer on a Wednesday night. Because Mondays nights is the worst time to have any meeting. Sorry, just anybody hosting a meetup, don't do it Monday night. That's horrible. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody's busy. Everybody's worn out from the day. So I said, I'm going to have it on Wednesday. Sure enough, 60 people showed up. And, before COVID, we were getting, 180 members or so. But I built it around, one, the Facebook group. I created probably a year into it, just because once again, I'm kind of dumb when it comes to that stuff, but I knew that I needed to put something out there to actually like talk about the meetup and allow a forum, which is an incredibly active forum. I think we have 100 member requests a week. Wow. But I wanted to create a place where people could transact freely. I don't charge for the meetup. I have no interest in edifying myself through the meetup. Now I know that that is a byproduct of it, that I am the guy that runs the meetup, that owns the units. So there is something great that comes with that. I have a meetup group that has 6,000 members. I can ask one question of where's a contractor or this, and I get 6,000 people and looking at it. But I really wanted to create something where I brought on people that could truly educate without the sales pitch, that could help individuals, and where people could transact, do off-market deals, and really grow their business. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of still what it is. So, but kind of further on my journey, I kept doing more deals that year. I mean, have you ever been in the zone before where everything's the flow state? Have you ever been in the flow state?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Are you in the flow state now?
Right now, listening to you, absolutely.
I love it, man. We all go through, and I think, I was listening to Ed Milet. You can only really hold on to the flow state for like max 6 months, maybe 9 months. It's where everything feels easy. It's where problems are just, you just move on and look for solutions. You don't dwell on issues. And that first, 6-9 months is maybe even the first year, I was in such a flow state where everything that I read, I did, and I tried, and I was just in such a good mood all the time, working 18 hours a day. I mean, my wife laughs about it, but anytime I'd say, let's go for lunch, she knew I was going in a place I was looking at properties. So we'd get a quick bite, we'd throw it on the stroller, and we'd walk around, and I'd be looking up addresses, searching for the owners and calling them, and, trying to make off-market deals. But I guess an important part that I did not bring up is something that I've always ran to, and this is, the problems thing is, early on, I realized everybody hates their property manager if they're using third parties. They always have complaints. Nobody likes to property manage. And it is one of the most important, if not the most important, essential thing for real estate to become successful. So I had realized I'd always managed people my entire life. I dealt well with conflict, mainly interpersonal conflict. I always made it I wouldn't call it a game, but basically a game. When I worked at the grocery store, you get some really upset people about something, or just any of the jobs, any of the retail jobs I worked. My job was, I was always called upon to take upon the hardest individual that was, threatening lawsuits. And I would listen, I would appease, and I would still get my way that was beneficial for the company, while making they felt like they won, because they wanted to be listened. They wanted to get their point across. So I knew, I was like, okay, I'm going to manage my own properties, because this is going to give me my basically golden parachute of stability within the real estate. So I started managing all my own assets. I figured out Buildium, QuickBooks, all those types of tools on my own, not knowing what I was doing. I didn't know that reconciling your books actually means you have to pull up your bank statement. So there was some trial and error there, and that's when I started hiring people. But I would partner with people along the way. So some individuals would either find a property, or they'd bring all the money, but they didn't want to manage it. So they'd bring me on. So I'd manage it. I'd take a 10% flat fee. There was no payroll or anything. And I was running it all. I was doing all the leasing. I was handling all the maintenance calls. I was handling all the PM software, all the bank accounts, all the reporting. And what that led to is, after, close to or less than a year, that February of 2018, I was making about $6,000-$7,000 a month in income from my property management company. And that's what gave me the stability to quit. But also what I found is that I was able to move a lot faster on my real estate than most. I didn't even know what BRRRR was. The first time I did a refinance was because I had a property under contract and needed to find $130,000 and did not have $130,000, and thought that I raised my property's values, and it actually came out to within like $800 and came in 2 days before closing. But what I found is being in property management, you can move a lot faster. You can be a lot more nimble, and you can complete the business plan faster. And in this business, time is the biggest thing working against you. Vacancy, the cost of time to turn a unit. You are always paying money. Interest is always accruing. Insurance and taxes are always being paid. There's utilities always on. The faster you can handle the things, the more successful you be. The people that fail are the ones that are too slow to turn units, too slow to lease out units, too slow to make a decision. So anybody in this business, you either got to be an operator or partner with an operator. And that's where I just decided I'm going to go the hardest, crappiest route and become a property manager. And ended up growing that to about 1,300 rental units. That I was in-house managing, and then recently just partnered with another group to merge the company so I could kind of take a step back, more of like a board seat, and have them operate it, but allow us to scale and continue to build our in-house property management company.
That makes sense.